watching Race to Power with me, Ananya Datta. Let's start talking politics. Names and then more names. Donald Trump is busy building his team from his home in Mar-a-Lago, but he's not wandering very far. Turns out he will sending people to the White House from his own state of Florida. We decode with experts as well as our correspondent. Also, Sri Lanka is in election mode again. In 2 days' time, 17 million people will be out to elect their parliament this time. Stay tuned for a ground report. US President-elect Donald Trump has been busy since his electoral victory. He has about 2 months to build his team, and it seems like most of Trump's second administration is coming from his home state of Florida. First in the list is Marco Rubio for the role of Secretary of State. Local media reports suggest that the Florida senator has been approached for the job. This past year has been eventful for Rubio. He was also considered as Trump's running mate. Some say he was the runner-up to J.D. Vance. Rubio has been the Florida senator since the year 2011 and has staked out a position as a foreign policy hawk. He has taken a hard line on China, Iran, Venezuela and Cuba in particular. Rubio has been among the most outspoken senators on the need for the United States to be more aggressive on China. Also, Michael Waltz is expected to be the next National Security Advisor of United States. After 4 years in Army, he joined the Florida Army National Guard. He has done multiple combat tours and has been awarded 4 Bronze Stars. Waltz also worked in the Pentagon as a policy advisor. Like Rubio, he also believes going tough against China, and as a member of the Republicans' China Task Force, Waltz has argued that the US military is not as prepared as it needs to be in case there is a conflict in the Indo-Pacific region. Waltz is also the co-chair of the India Caucus. He has advocated for advancing defense and security cooperation with India. Now, the seat for the White House Chief of Staff has already been filed by Susie Wiles, and Trump is now reportedly expected to announce that Stephen Miller will serve as the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. Miller, remember, has led Trump's team of speechwriters during the first term. He has been a leading advocate for a more restrictive immigration policy and is expected to take on an expanded role in the president-elect's second term. Miller is also a lead architect of the president-elect's plans for mass deportations of undocumented immigrants. Speaking of deportations, according to a CNN report, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is being considered for Homeland Security Secretary. That will be a strong loyalist heading an agency that is key to his domestic agenda. The department oversees everything from U.S. Customs to border protection and immigration. The Homeland Security is also in charge of the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the U.S. Secret Service. And this comes a day after Trump announced Tom Homan as his border czar. 62-year-old Homan is well versed with the immigration crisis as well as working with Trump. Over the course of his long career, Homan managed to rise the ranks and ultimately become the acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. In an interview, Homan has talked about targeted arrests and workplace enforcement, something that are in line with Trump's plan of executing America's largest deportation in history. And for more on this, our correspondent Susan Tehrani is joining us live on this broadcast from New York. Also on the broadcast, we have Alex Zidon, Republican strategist, award-winning investigative journalist and writer. He's joining us live from New Jersey. Both of you, thank you so much for being with me on this broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
Susan, if I could quickly start with you, it seems like Donald Trump is heading for a trifecta win.
Yeah, it does appear that way, and it seems like the Republicans will hold on to the Senate, it will hold on to the House, and then retake the Senate. So it's very interesting that the three branches are going to be working together. A lot of people are asking, what does this mean? Well, considering the fact that they already had the House in their hands, we might also move forward by seeing more robust conservative agendas moving forward regarding oversight we'll probably see that continuing as well. Again, based on Donald Trump's agenda and the Republicans' agenda, and then, of course, budgeting as well. In the Senate, of course, this is going to be after quite a while that the Republicans have a majority in there. So, it'll be interesting to see how the three branches of government work together. And I think the American people really signaled that this is what they want. They really want a break from Kamala Harris's policies, and they want the country, the government, to work together to the benefit of the country.
Right, absolutely. From purple to red, it seems. Susan, thank you so much for all those updates from New York. Mrs. Zahn, if I could come to you quickly, let me begin by asking you, the names we have heard overall, are there any surprises you would say, or are all on expected lines?
Well, I think it's an excellent team that's being formed, and especially when you talk about Senator Rubio potentially going to the State Department and Congressman Waltz being National Security Advisor, the best thing to come out of these picks so far is that President Trump is building around him a group that is clear-eyed and focused about the competition and the threat from the Chinese Communist Party. Don't forget, in 2018, during his first administration, President Trump directed that the national security strategy be rewritten to focus on great power competition and the number one opponent as China. This is a continuation of that mold that he had in the first term. It's a very promising sign to see individuals like Senator Rubio and Congressman Waltz who are so clear-eyed and focused about the threat that China poses to the United States of America.
Right. Mrs. Zidane, there's a growing belief, and I think you would agree with me when I say this, that Donald Trump is not only looking for expertise, he's also looking for loyalists. So it begs the question, how different do you think his administration this time is going to turn out to be compared to last time, given he had 40 record firings?
Well, I'm only going to agree with you part way on what you said. Every president wants individuals who are loyal. Every leader wants individuals who are loyal. No president wants people who backbite the leader to the press, who leak, who do things behind someone's back. So loyalty is always a consideration, no matter who the president or who the leader is. Again, I think that President Trump is turning to people who he knows, who have expertise in the respective fields. Susie Wiles, an excellent choice for chief of staff. It's not just loyalty, it's loyalty and competence. And Susie Wiles is an extraordinarily competent person who ran a great campaign and will make a fantastic chief of staff.
Absolutely, that seems to be the hope. Before I let you go, let me talk about one name that hasn't been confirmed yet. And you must have heard him, Elon Musk. And we're hearing that there might be something around artificial intelligence. Are you hearing something on that?
It would be excellent, just like Robert F. Kennedy potentially having someone like Elon Musk, who is an expert in that field, advise the government would be a great choice. Haven't heard anything confirmed yet. We'll see what happens. Still a lot of appointments left to make.
All right, Mrs. Zidane, I'll have to leave it with that. Thank you so much for joining us here on WION and getting us your insights.
Thank you for having me.
Let's shift focus to another big story. This one is coming in from Sri Lanka. All eyes are on the general elections in the country as campaigning for the polls ended last night. And the island nation has moved into a silent period during which all campaign activities until election day stand prohibited. The polling for the general election will be held on November 14th, when 17 million electorate will exercise their right to vote at over 13,400 polling stations across the country. Over 8,800 candidates are vying for 225 parliamentary seats, for which more than 75,000 police personnel have been deployed across the island. The elections are expected to set the tone for the country's political future under the leadership of President Anurakumara Dissanayaka. Sri Lanka elected National People's Power NPP coalition candidate Dissanayaka as the president in September this year. Now, days after assuming office, he dissolved the parliament. In the last parliamentary election, Dissanayaka's party won only 3 seats in the 225-seat parliament, while Mahinda Rajapaksa's SLPP won 145 seats, and Sajid Premadasa's SJB backed 54 seats. An alliance needs to win 113 seats to form the government in Sri Lanka. Now, President Dissanayaka aims to expand his 3 parliamentary seats into majority in Thursday's elections. NPP alliance established in 2019 is being led by the People's Liberation Front or Janata Vimukti Perumuna. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa's party, SJB, is expected to be NPP's main challenger as some candidates from one of the major Muslim political parties, SLMC, have joined the SJP. SJP is a breakaway faction of the United National Party, that's UNP, and some members of which will contest under the banner of the New Democratic Front Alliance, under which former President Ranil Wickremesinghe contested the presidential elections. Sri Lanka's SLPP, the party of the former President Mahinda Rajapaksa and Gotabaya Rajapaksa, is also fielding candidates, although the Rajapaksa brothers themselves are not contesting. Dissanayaka won the presidential election on a populist wave, reflecting middle-class sentiments against corruption and public anger over the island's 2022 economic meltdown. He faced incumbent President Wickremesinghe, Sajid Premadasa of SJB and Namal Rajapaksa of the SLPP. Dissanayaka has gained the trust of both domestic as well as international investors, who believe that he will uphold the ongoing reforms.
I think the President's party, the NPP, will emerge victorious from the parliamentary election. The size of their majority obviously is to be determined based on many other factors, including things like voter fatigue and other things as well. So I think that they will have a comfortable majority.
As citizens of this country and as a businessman involved in the leisure sector, we expect a stable government which can bring up this economy. Tourism plays a very vital role in Sri Lankan economy. Therefore, peaceful environment that is conducive to carry out any business is what we anticipate from the election.
Our correspondent Dasonia Thauda has more on this from Colombo.
The upcoming parliamentary polls, while also being a popularity test for President Dissanayaka, is sure to bring in a new era of politics here in Sri Lanka, especially given the fact that a majority of people, along with analysts, are hopeful that this is an election where the country will see a huge number of fresh entrants into parliament, which is sure to resound with the people's need of wanting for change in Sri Lanka's political system. Stay with WION as we bring you the very latest of Sri Lanka's parliamentary polls live from Colombo. For the WION team, I'm Dasonia Thauda.
Following the collapse of Germany's coalition, the date has been set over an impending vote of confidence. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz will face a confidence vote on December 16th. Germany's coalition government has collapsed due to internal disputes over budget and economic policy, and the country is now gearing up for snap elections in 2025, which can be held as early as February now. The polls come against the backdrop of a flagging economy, the war in Ukraine, and the looming second Donald Trump presidency in the United States. If Scholz loses a confidence vote, then the parliament has to be dissolved within 21 days as per the constitution. An election must then be held within 60 days from the date of dissolution, with a confidence vote on December 16th. Now, this puts the deadline for elections at mid-February next year. Amid the political chaos, the CEO of Germany's largest printing firm for ballot papers warned that a snap election in January would come with a lot of organizational challenges that could pose a challenge to the election process's integrity. It remains to be seen how the firm now reacts to the possibility of a February snap election. States have voiced concerns that the collapse of Chancellor Olaf Scholz's coalition government could increase the country's price of flat-rate local transport ticket. The funding of the ticket that in 2024 cost just under €50 per month has been a contentious issue from the onset. While the coalition's collapse and the lack of an agreed budget for 2025 did not immediately cut funding, states warned that unused funds from this year had to be transferred to avoid price spikes. Now, several thousand people took to the streets in the Serbian capital to call for the resignation of the Prime Minister following a fatal train station roof collapse. The protesters accused the government of nepotism, corruption and negligence on construction and development projects. Braving the cold and pouring rain to heed the opposition's call to join the rally in Belgrade, the demonstrators chanted for those responsible to be arrested.
I'm here today because the state that runs us is not normal. We live in a country where you have to take to the streets when a major tragedy occurs. That's not our job. We shouldn't be doing that. But here we are fighting for so many years against the tyranny of the SNS and the government.
I came out in the rain and I come to every protest because I cannot accept young people dying like that for no reason. And I observe with great pain that positions of responsibility are occupied by people who have nothing to do with these positions. People who have no diplomas and who have no professional ability to lead this country.
The protests in the capital came 10 days after the accident killed at least 14 in a northern city train station. The accident sparked uproar across Serbia, with minors among the dead. Around 20,000 people gathered on Friday for a demonstration that was marred by incidents. 14 people accused of attending and attacking the town hall, smashing windows and throwing incendiary objects were arrested. The demonstrations have continued despite Construction Minister resigning from his post on Friday, while Prime Minister has accused the opposition of abusing the tragedy and of wishing to take power without elections. He also announced further resignations in the days to come. A fresh wave of protests have erupted in the country of Georgia over 2 weeks after parliamentary elections were held in the Eurasian country. Thousands of opposition supporters rallied in the capital of Tbilisi, protesting against the ruling Georgian Dream Party's claim to poll victory after elections on October 26th. Opposition leaders have repeatedly claimed that the election was rigged and the ruling party won with Russia's support.
Elections were massively rigged. That is why we don't recognize election results. Actually, we won these elections. They just rewrote the election results, and that is why we're going to fight until the end. So our goal is the new elections. Our goal is to form new government, which will drive Georgia in European integration.
Several lawmakers from other EU member nations also joined the protests outside Georgia's parliament. Leaders from Poland and Lithuania attended the demonstrations to show their support to protesters demanding a probe into the alleged election fraud.
All those who wants to steal your election, for all those who want to steal your votes, who want to steal your freedom, we can repeat famous words of Ukrainian soldiers, Ruski военный корабль.
Lawmakers from the opposition have vowed to boycott parliamentary sessions and conduct regular demonstrations until their demands are met. Let's talk about Senegal now. The country is preparing to conduct snap parliamentary elections on 17th of this month. But ahead of the key vote on Sunday, the country's Prime Minister has called on his supporters and party workers to avenge an alleged attack against supporters of his Pastef party. Ahead of the polls, incumbent Prime Minister Ousmane Sonko posted on his Facebook account, urging people to seek retribution for attacks and injuries on his supporters. Sonko has accused a rival coalition of carrying out attacks since campaigns began for the elections. Meanwhile, Senegal's former president Macky Sall is also eyeing a comeback to power. Just months after leaving office in April earlier this year, Sall had a political crisis in Senegal after he decided to delay presidential elections. Interestingly, the ex-president is not in the country and reportedly has set base in Morocco. But Sall is heading a newly formed opposition coalition from abroad, and this has critics questioning the leader's motives behind his return to power. The West African nation is due to elect a new parliament in 5 days, and after President Bassirou Diomaye Faye dissolved the opposition-dominated chamber in September. Now, our correspondent Louisa Olenier has a report on this from Lagos, Nigeria.
All parties to the weekend legislative elections in Senegal seems confident of victory as campaigns intensify amidst attacks, accusations and counter-accusations by opposition. This election has seen high participation with 41 parties, coalition and independents vying for 165 seats. However, some lists face rejection due to myriads of issues. From all indications, the voting system, which combines majoritarian and proportional representation, adds complexity to these issues. And given the recent reforms and high public interest, international observers will be present to ensure transparency, even as analysts predict low voter turnout. Senegal's president has since called for decorum as campaign continues. Senegal battles economic challenges, high inflation and social issues, all of which the president's reform seeks to address with the help of his party, securing legislative majority at the polls. From Lagos, Nigeria, Louisa Olani, WION, World is One.
This is why we keep saying elections in the United States has a ripple effect. Japan's leading car makers face uncertainty as US President-elect Donald Trump signals major policy changes aimed at revitalizing American manufacturing. Trump has proposed a hefty tariff on all cars produced in Mexico, where many Japanese automakers like Honda and Nissan have significant production hubs serving the US. Now, this would force companies relying on Mexican facilities to reconsider their strategies. Honda, for instance, produces roughly 200,000 cars in Mexico each year, with 80% headed for US buyers. However, Trump's potential re-examination of electric vehicle incentives may pose a shift in the market dynamics. Unlike the Biden administration, which favored electric vehicles, a Trump-led government could ease off such incentives. However, this might benefit Japan's expertise in hybrid technology, with some companies eyeing an expansion in US-based manufacturing for electric and hybrid vehicles. On the global front, Japanese car makers are also struggling in China, making the US market even more critical. Let's now take a look at what else is making headlines in the world of elections and politics. Newly appointed interim Prime Minister of Haiti takes oath amid deep political and social crisis in the country. He takes over from his predecessor, Cornel, who was fired on Sunday by the Caribbean country's Transitional Council. Pardon me on that. The council and the new Prime Minister face the challenge to prepare for long-delayed elections in the country.
Transparency and good governance in the management of public affairs will be a priority for my government. We will work towards social cohesion, a necessary condition for the restoration of the state and the holding of inclusive, transparent and democratic elections. Only this will grant the state legitimate and constitutional authority.
d'autorité constitutionnelle et légitime.
Mauritius opposition leader Ramgoolam claims a landslide victory in presidential election. The Alliance of Change won all 60 of the National Assembly seats that were up for grabs in the Assembly. Now he is now set for a third term as the Prime Minister and has previously served as the Prime Minister from 1995 to 2000 and again from 2005 to 2014. And with that, we are wrapping up this edition of Race to Power. Thanks for watching with me and Anya Datta. Goodbye.
WION Health Resort is unique, the only one of its kind. Experience the 4 paths of natural wellness: yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy. Each uniquely customized program improves the whole person to make every person whole.